click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 133. And we're joined by Brad Howell, who is a Moto athletic development coach, or in layman's terms, fitness and nutritional guy. Would that cover it?
You just help people go fast on a motorbike.
Yeah. But welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Cheers, guys. Yeah, really good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
How am I? I'm blowing out my back. I feel like a deflated whoopee cushion. We've just been put through a test, and he's all friendly to begin with. Hello, lads. We're going to do this, do that. It's like, pedal now. It was brilliant. Honestly, mind you, the only thing I'm going to change about your company name is, Metabolic there. I'm going to change that, mate, you're bollocks. That's what you just need to change.
Saving that one up.
I saw that and went, I'm just going to keep that one for the bank. There we go.
I'm having that catchphrase.
Yeah, mate, you're bollocks.
So for people tuning in today, obviously on the show we'll look at all aspects of like the bike racing and whatever, and today we're looking at the sort of fitness side of bike racing. So Brad's an expert in that sort of area, fitness and nutritional, and myself and Dom have just been put through our paces, down at so it's Metabolix, isn't it?
Metabolix, yeah,
and we're down in sort of near Middlesbrough.
Yeah, Stoke, so just south of Middlesbrough.
So I'd say we've just crept into North Yorkshire.
Yeah,
I mean, just farted into North Yorkshire, just got over the edge of it, which is brilliant. But I tell you what, before we go down the whole scientific why we're dying here situation. Now, you're a man of the cloth yourself. You practice what you preach. You've raced motorcycles for many years yourself.
Yeah, started in 96 as a kid, 13-year-old kid. And I did 16 or 17 consecutive seasons up to 2010. And retired through injury.
All right.
I had a spill and made a bit of a mess of my shoulder, so I had to jack in. I didn't want to, but forced my hand, really.
Were you doing 96 time? Was that like sort of, did you start with Super Teens or something?
It was just before Super Teens came about. So it were a series called the JRA, run by right now Les Etherington, I think, and Adrian Pallett, and it were junior racing for 13 to 16-year-olds on little 80cc bikes. So
yeah, is that what Tosland did the first year?
Yeah, that's what Tosland started in. Yeah, I think he started in 95. Yeah. I think Super Teens came along shortly after that, and then they reduced the age limit to 11 to start. But that was the only thing that you could do back in my day as a kid to get on tarmac anyway.
Mm. So I'd say from a motocross background, so where did it all start then? Was it dad into racing, or what's the story there?
Dad loved bikes. He never raced, and he had a bike on road, but I never did any motocross or anything. My first bike that I bought, I think it was a Yamaha RS100 that I seen in my mate's dad's garden, and I said, can I have that? And I think he sold it me for 100 quid. So we put some motocross forks in it and some knobbly tyres, and I used to just ride round fields on that. And then watched a lot of racing. It's all I ever wanted to do. I was shit at football and every other sport, so let's have a crack at that.
I love that. It's like those who can't do teach. If you're shit at any other sport, just go into motorcycles. It explains me to a T. I've just insulted you twice there, haven't I?
What's it say? Those who can't teach and those who can't teach what?
I don't know, you're the teacher, you tell me. Anyway, I've highly insulted our guest here.
And me.
And you.
But yeah, no, you pretty much summed it terrible at everything else. I thought I'll try my hand at racing, and seen an advert in MCN for junior racing. I think I seen it when I was maybe 11 or 12. And I said to my dad, can we go, can we do this? He says, yeah, when you're 13, we'll do it. 13th birthday, first thing I said when I came downstairs is, can we go racing bikes now? And that's how it all started for me.
Do you know, of your cohort who first started, who are the sort of well-known people from that group who went on to do sort of big things?
From that JRA series, obviously Tosland, Chaz were in there. Trying to think. It's a long time ago. It's 27 years ago. Get my grey matter working.
Is it similar sort of time to the likes of Ellison and Brogan? What was that?
Yeah, how can I forget James Ellison, Dean Ellison, Brogan? He came through there. Kelvin Riley. A lot of good lads came through that series.
And when did you make the step up to sort of British Championship racing?
98. So I did 2 years at junior level, and then in 98 they did the TB 500. So I think Tozen did it in 97, and then I went and did it in 98, 99, and then 2000 straight into Superstock with Jeffries and Mullen and all them boys. So Jesus. Yeah, right into the deep end.
And did you stay in Superstock racing until you retired in like 2007?
Pretty much, yeah. Did Superstock, did the junior Superstock when that came along, Virgin Media Cup, heaps of club racing, Super Club, MRO, pretty much everything that we could get our hands on for the budget that we had. Mm-hmm. We kind of had a stab at it, so...
And like what you do now in terms of the fitness and nutritional side, specifically for bike races, did that all start before you retired, like while you were still racing?
No, unfortunately, it started after I finished racing, so I didn't get any of the benefits that I can give to other people.
But we always like into the sort of fitness side.
Yeah, I were into training, and I've kind of watched my diet, but yeah, I wish I knew then what I know now. Whether or not it'd have made me any better a bike rider, I don't know. But there's a lot of benefits to the knowledge that I've got now, in terms of helping me as a rider back then.
Mm-hmm.
So what injury was it then? Your shoulder?
Yeah.
Talk me through it. Was it high side, low side?
I love my crashes. So I think when I was doing that junior championship 2 consecutive years running, I won Best Crash of the Year award. So
they actually have that.
Yeah, I think they might have made it for me.
I can achieve something now, Chrissy. I can achieve something. I'm going for it.
They used to do a compilation thing on Moto's TV of like crashes of the month.
Eurosport, and it's like, you know what? And I hope he doesn't listen to this, but Graham Gowland always used to get a mention on that. I used to live down the road from him, and it was like me dad, like being the local lad, like following watching Eurosport and stuff like that. My dad would go, Gowland. God, but when that lad could ride a bike, but unfortunately when he pushed, and when it pushed, sometimes it bit him, didn't it?
Yeah, that were kind of much the same for me, really. We always seemed to be on under competitive machinery, so I always found myself pushing, too hard. Oh, that's my excuse anyway. And a lot of tarmac, but I'd picked up a few injuries, nothing too serious, but yeah, the kind of career-ending injury. I had an AC separation on my right side and severed long thoracic nerve, so I get a lot of scapular winging in that side. So I just lost a load of stability in that shoulder. Had a bunch of surgery. Had clavicle resected, so it's not attached on that side anymore. But it's just not. We tried to go back and ride, but I was a good second or so off times that I were doing previously, and as you know, a second, especially in a Superstock, there's difference between first and last row. So unfortunately, I had to call it a day.
And for people that are kind of, they might recognise your name, or at least recognise the brand, or maybe seen you on pictures with World Superbike riders or whatever. Do you want to just give a very quick overview of what you do now in terms of your job, both with the metabolic stuff and also the personal stuff?
Yeah, sure. So in I think it was 2007, 2008, just before I retired, I started working with a few of the guys, did a bit of studying, started working with other guys with more so the nutrition and a bit of training. So then when I finally did retire, it kind of seemed like the natural progression for me. I didn't have a job riding bikes anymore, so I'd help other people ride bikes. And then in 2015, kind of went full-time with a consultancy, working with riders on the nutrition and the strength and conditioning. And it kind of developed from there. We won the British Championship in 2015 with Josh. And then since then, I think together with the guys that I've worked with, I think we've maybe done 7 British titles, a bunch of race wins, podiums and stuff. So whether it be through nutritional intervention or training, we've had a reasonable level of success. And then more recently with Metabolix, I've always been kind of pushing the boundaries of what's possible and how we can improve somebody's performance, and exercise physiology has always been something that I've been interested in, but of recent times gone away and studied in exercise physiology, and then opened a lab up here in Stokesley. So just kind of moving that progression on and doing all our own in-house testing and everything now, so we can obviously test people's fitness and then use that data to construct very accurate training programs.
I'm sure in the tech world, meta it means like large, doesn't it?
Meta.
So you could interpret yours as large bollocks.
Large bollocks. Yeah. I think it's actually Greek for beyond. That's what meta means. Yeah. So
beyond the bollocks.
Beyond the bollocks.
Get beyond the bollocks and get a true assessment. I'm massively fit me. Like let's see.
Speaking of the assessment, obviously me and Dom came down this morning, and I wouldn't say I've enjoyed it, but it's maybe not enjoyed. Yeah, maybe not the thingy, but really, really useful information. And we'll just quickly sort of talk through what we did. So we started off with sort of a resting. So you explain it like
the resting metabolic assessment.
Yeah, using the right words. So explain what that first thing was.
Yeah, so the resting metabolic assessment is basically to assess your resting metabolic rate. So how many calories you need a day, and it also looks at your respiratory quotient as well. So the percentage of carbohydrates and fats that you're burning at rest. From that, you can establish a very accurate calorie intake to either maintain, increase, or lose weight sensibly. So it just takes all the guesswork out of how many calories do I need, basically.
It's massive. Like, that is such a crucial part of that, because normally, like, people, obviously I don't train, you can tell, but it's a case of like, you develop a blueprint at that exact point. So instead of going, well, I need to run this far, to do what, burn how many calories, having a clue. It's interesting. So like using us as your guinea pigs for our listeners, it's a case of like, what was your rest? So explain Chrissy's resting calorie intake thing.
Are you okay to share this?
Yeah, don't be shy. He's going to tell me mine.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think Chris's resting metabolic rate was around 2,500 calories. So yeah, resting metabolic rate, that's literally if you were to just kind of wake up and not move all day. That's just for involuntary bodily function like breathing, pumping blood. 2,500 calories. And then obviously you've got your daily activity calories to put on top of that, which we established through a questionnaire to see how active you are at work and whatnot. And then obviously any calories that you're expending while training, that's to be added to it as well. So yeah, I think you come out pretty well. If we were to consider your training as well, maybe you're close to 4,000 calories to maintain weight. So
yeah, and in terms of
4,000 calories to maintain weight, if you went to the Antarctic Circle, they recommend you have 5,000 calories. So you'd have to have a lot of chocolate, mate.
In terms of the
I hate people like Chris.
I sort of, mate, I've worked for him for 2 odd years. I still ate him from the moment I saw him.
in terms of,
nothing personal.
It's very personal for me.
In terms of losing weight, is it a case, like, for example, if you worked it out that you were, say, using like about 4,000, expending about 4,000 a day, would you be kind of looking at about to eat maybe around 3,500 for like a sensible weight loss?
Yeah, 500, well, 3,500 calories equates to about a pound a week. So if you were to have a 500 calorie deficit every day, you'd be looking to lose around a pound a week, and that's recommended. It's a conservative weight loss. The problem is if you go kind of too hard, and if you do it for too long, you can actually damage your metabolism, and your metabolism will slow down. Right. So if you're restricting food,
is that I remember, was it from a book or maybe a podcast I listened to, and it was saying how important it is to have cheat days when you are dieting, because if you just say if you eat 500 calories less every day after maybe a week or two, your body goes into like, thinks that there's a problem with food and goes in, like, closes itself down and goes into like starvation mode. Exactly. So you need to like trigger it back.
Yeah.
So it is actually, even if you're trying to lose weight, having like 1 day a week of going way over.
When you look at our evolutionary biology, we've not really made that. Well, it takes about 100,000 years to make an evolutionary progression in terms of our kind of genome. So we're kind of wired as we were 100,000 years ago. So back then, now we've got an abundance of food, which is why we're amidst an obesity epidemic. But back then there weren't a lot of food. So if food was scarce, then yeah, for sure your metabolism would would reduce as a survival mechanism. You know, if there's no food and your metabolic rate is high, then you're going to die 100,000 years ago.
To be honest, I'm the biggest stickler for that because, like, I call myself Fat Dom at the moment. Like, so it's like when I'm working through the winter, I can easily get to 14 stone.
Yeah.
And that is through living what I call a loving, great life. You know what I mean? That is drinking obscene amount of Guinness, eating kebabs, like, I mean, anything off the floor, I'm eating it. I'm that kind of bloke. Total full survival mode, you know, just to survive in the woods. But then
comes to the classic DT.
No, but honestly, it is like
giving away 2 seconds a lap.
But no, that's it though. It was a case of when I signed up for like the Davies team, it was the first thing they said because I was all right, porgy, like 14 clem, and it was like, can you lose the weight? And I went, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I was doing probably the work, like, after what you two were saying, every season since 2018, I go from 14 stone to 11 and a half. And that is literally no cheat days, I literally put the biscuits down, stop drinking pop, miserable for months. Miserable, mate. Like, I mean, but I literally just crash diet. Yeah. But then you can imagine it's just like the end of season, it's like a go button.
Yeah.
Go have fun again, and like, really, in your professional term, am I going to die 10 years younger?
No, not at all. It definitely increases your performance and obviously influences your metabolism as well. Because when you crash dieting like that, unless you have kind of refeed days like you mentioned, Chrissy, and having the odd day where you'd increase your calories to at least maintenance or possibly a surplus, your metabolism will slow, and the rate at which you're losing weight will slow to reflect the reduction in your metabolism. And then once you start eating normally, you'll put weight on dead easy because, you know, even if you were to eat, let's say, maintenance calories for that weight, because your metabolic rate would have slowed down in reflection to the amount of calories you were putting in, that would no longer be maintenance for you. So you'd end up putting weight on quite quickly.
And speaking of me putting weight on, so you are 2,000, what was it, like your resting rate today?
2,500, I think.
2,500. Yeah. What was mine?
1900.
1900. Bear in mind, I have a very, very active job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it's a good job you do.
That's exactly it. It just shows how much bother I can get myself into. It's just like,
if you switch trades, you'd be screwed.
Well, I've got to dig a job on Monday, so I'm going to palm that off and just run to work or something like that. It's just ridiculous. But it just shows the comparisons and how everyone, I know it's two people sitting next to each other with both race bikes, but how different that is.
And, you know, there's only kind of an inch separating you in height.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. We were in a dark room for a few hours, you know, like
more than a few inches than last time we checked out.
Oh, God. We're not. How dare you?
Sorry, I'm
ladies, dig the girth. I've got more girth than you, son.
An inch around.
Where do we go from here? You tell us.
And not too dissimilar in terms of weight. So yeah, statistically, to look at you both, you'd probably peg you know, within 100 or so calories of one another for your resting metabolic rate. But yeah, as you can see, massively different. So,
and does that tend to be a genetic thing?
Yeah, it is largely genetic. You can work on improving your metabolic rate. For example, if you were to increase your lean mass, your metabolism would probably increase because, you know, muscle's metabolically active tissue, so it requires more energy to to work, basically.
And the second of the assessments that we did was up on the watt bike.
Yeah.
And that was a case of just ramping the wattage up by 20 watts every minute or something?
Every minute, yeah.
And that idea is, that's to get your thresholds, your LT1 and your LT2.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I found most interesting from the whole thing, well, there's two things. One of the main things was, I've always wondered about how your body burns fat and carbohydrate and like what the sort of split is, and to actually see it on the graph and like be able to interpret it so clearly. Really, really interesting. And I think it gives a good, for me personally, like a sort of takeaway from the session is it's like real sort of concrete data that I can see that I can then go away and work on. I know exactly, it's given us like a massive direction of what I want to achieve in like a few months type of thing.
Yeah.
The second thing was where the lines cross and you you know that when those lines cross, you're going into anaerobic. And to actually, it was literally like a switch for me. Like when although I still managed to power through for a few minutes, it was, you go from thinking, this is okay.
That's that extra.
And as soon as it looked up and seen that cross, and you think, right, I haven't, like, you just instantly know that you haven't got long left.
It's no longer psychological; it's very much physiological.
Absolutely. But do you want to give a quick rundown of what that test was?
Sure. So the second of the assessments that we offer at Metabolix is an active metabolic assessment, and as you said, it's a graded exercise test, and it can be done on. We use watt bikes here at the lab, but you can use a treadmill or a rower, anything that you can increase the intensity. So, as you say, graded exercise test today, we started at 100 watts every minute. It increased by 20 watts. And all the while, we're measuring your cardiorespiratory system. We're tracking your heart rate and seeing how that kind of reflects the external stimulus of the intensity. And obviously your breathing as well, your oxygen and your carbon dioxide, inspiration, expiration. And the test... Cheers, mate. The test, as you say, detects your threshold. So the technology that we use, we don't use blood lactate. We use ventilatory thresholds, which are interchangeable with blood lactate. So it basically shows when you're shifting from your aerobic to your glycotic energy system. So it shows which energy system you're using to produce energy, ATP. And then obviously your VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen that you can use, which indicates your level of fitness. And then also your substrate usage, which is how many calories you're burning per hour and where the calories are coming from, whether they're coming from fat or carbohydrates. And then using all that information, we can then create very accurate training zone intensities to develop specific areas of cardiovascular fitness.
Because like I was saying, it's like for years people just go to the gym, don't they, and just go, I'm going to do the same as everyone else, and like a base plan just doesn't work. I mean, I've had my eyes opened. It's upsetting because I've realised how much work I've got to do, but it's it is truly a massive eye opener what you've done, Mike.
The thing is, I don't know how many years it's over, but over the last few decades, I would say there's been so much of an advance in terms of this technology that's available. Yet, sort of maybe 90% of people, 95% of people going to the gyms aren't sort of taking advantage of this technology, where it's like I can honestly say a lot of the time I'll go to the gym and
you're just going there to check out the birds. That's what you're doing.
You just kind of like, you think you're doing something, and like there's no specific goals really where sort of taking advantage of. Very good. Now I guess the added benefit of sort of working so closely with a lot of bike racers, especially the very top of the sport, and monitoring them every session and all the winter training and stuff, all of the data is like very, very relevant, and you can kind of take the numbers that are on the screen and sort of put them to real life application on the track. Now, obviously, we're not going to talk about any specific rider or like their data or anything. But
what's Scott Redden like that?
But in general, like we're talking about our sort of heart rate going from from that LT1 wherever you sort of get into it up to like your max heart rate.
Sorry, have we just like told the listeners what LT1 stands for, or have we done that?
Yeah, but briefly, I think I've just confused people, though, to be honest, or I'm told that I just confused people.
Just to put it together, that's
in layman's terms.
As you start exercising, or as that intensity increases, you on a very basic kind of term, your body starts producing lactate, and it's that lactate production that will bring on sort of the onset of fatigue. So LT1, that's when your body's starting to produce lactate, but it's still manageable. Your body can still clear it. A well-trained athlete could probably operate for a couple of hours at beyond that intensity. When you're at LT2, second lactate threshold, that's when you kind of on borrowed time there, as you experience, you're literally a matter of minutes and you fatigue. So increasing those, to increase your cardiovascular fitness, we just need to work on increasing these thresholds so you produce lactate later and less.
Am I right in saying as well that the lactate production comes mainly from carbohydrates?
Yeah. So when
more easily from carbohydrates.
Yeah, when your body, obviously you've got stored glycogen, and you can only store a couple of thousand calories of glycogen. When your body's breaking down that glycogen to produce glucose for energy, that creates byproducts, a byproduct called pyruvate, and then the lactate is required to metabolize the pyruvate. So the more kind of carbs that are getting burned, the more lactate you're producing. So
the quicker you're going to burn out.
Yeah. So if you can rely more on oxidizing fat, the less lactate in theory that you're going to be producing.
And you can change, or you can improve that sort of balance by nutrition.
Yeah, it's basically, and this is where the training, like we discussed before, training below that first ventilatory threshold, or LT1, fat can only be burnt in the presence of oxygen. So when your body's starting to produce lactate because it's burning off carbohydrates, it's unable to burn fat. So the idea, like we said, behind the low intensity training is to increase your body's efficiency at burning fat at that lower intensity. There's also nutritional interventions that you can use to increase metabolic efficiency and increase your body's ability to be able to burn fat and oxygen as opposed to relying on carbohydrates. So it can be improved. And you can also lose it as well. It's something that you kind of need to keep on top of. So getting the data, implementing that into your regime, into your programming, your nutrition and your training, but then it's something that you need to kind of keep on top of, otherwise you lose it.
In terms of heart rate, so like as we were saying, from like LT1 all the way up to your max heart rate, every rider's different, every person's different. And I remember we had Christian in on the podcast a while ago who's like super fit.
Yeah.
Yet when he
have you had him on there?
No.
There's a good journal.
When he monitors,
bring him in.
He monitors his heart rate during sessions, and he said, I think just in training in general, even though he's super fit, he doesn't, his heart rate doesn't get like that high, as high as like other people's. And we've also, say on BT Sport, sometimes wire them up so you can actually watch. And there's riders like, sure, it's someone like someone's got a really high one and someone's got a really low one in MotoGP. So it does differ. But what sort of range do you tend to see in, like, when you're riding with your riders? What sort of range do you see during like practice, qualifying, and race?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one because, you know, let's say a rider's got a resting heart rate of sort of 40 beats per minute. In that environment, the resting heart rate is always higher because you've got, you know, it's not just the physiological stress on the body, it's the psychological as well. So there's not a lot of nerves tension. So that affects the heart rate. And also while you're riding as well. So when you're riding, I'd say an average heart rate would be around sort of 160, 170, which is pretty high. But also you've got to consider the psychological element of that. It's not purely physiological that's achieving that number.
I noticed that with earplugs that you put on before you. So there's been a few times years ago when I first started wearing them, I would put them in and I'd be sort of sat ready for a session, and you can actually sometimes you can hear your own heart rate through like things. And it's like boom,
for me, it's an echo.
Boom, 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 boom.
An echo.
You literally sat there not doing any physical work, but just because of your body's preparing for what it knows is coming.
I feel like that right now.
It's nice that we're making you nervous, because me and him, I tell you what, send me down Bray Hill any day of the week. I haven't been that nervous. But, mate, I didn't even wear white tracksuit bottoms thinking that I'm going to shit myself.
Precautionary measures.
I'm going to shit myself when I do this.
No, also it was crazy to with Tom's graph. It was mad how much like in the tank that you like in terms of your lungs, like you were kind of expecting those, for the LT2, so like that's when you go into anaerobic, and Dom was just like a machine. He just kept going and going.
But that shows the comparison though difference, because like my body, well, you explain it, what happened to me?
So basically you've got a very good aerobic energy system, and you weren't kicking out a lot of carbon dioxide or lactate.
Even though I'm full of shit, that's amazing.
The The problem with you was actually the strength endurance in your legs. You said you don't do a lot of cycling or a lot of training in general, so you struggle to achieve the potential of your cardiorespiratory system because you basically muscles in your legs wouldn't allow for it. So but yeah, up until that point, I think because of the kind of work that you do, you've developed that energy system quite successfully. So you had a very strong aerobic system, very metabolically efficient in terms of your fat usage. So you use an incredible amount of fat, up to a reasonable intensity. So in terms of that, great. I think you'd be a fantastic candidate if you were to just develop the strength in the legs a little bit. I think you'd be quite a machine, yeah.
But that's the thing, it's actually having that blueprint. It's like, I was joking when I first met you up in the room, it's like you're literally the dyno man for the human body. The thing is, anyone can buy a bike, every engine's different.
Yeah.
In the world, it doesn't matter, but every engine needs fuel and air mixed correctly.
Yeah.
And it's like on certain days, certain differences, everything. That is, you are the actual dyno man for that. So for me, basically, if I only eat half an apple a day and pedal like bollocks, I'll be an athlete.
Metabolics.
That's it. But it's like I just say, it's properly opened my eyes, because the fact of like, I know what I need. Well, we've got a plan. There is a plan.
It's highlighted that there's a weakness in muscular strength endurance, so now we know that we need to go work on
exactly.
that now.
Here's a question then for both of our LT1 and LT2s. How much further up the scale do you think we would have got with some Podium juice beforehand?
Oh, heaps. You'd have broken the machine.
No, I tell you what, we're
going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll come back to Podium juice, but you've been testing us, so we've actually just got a new game on the show, is so basically the rules are you put your hands around here like this, straight arms, and then you get 2 squeezes and you just squeeze as hard as you can.
Okay.
And then we measure them. Right, so we've got like a Top Gear style system. What's been our best so far? We had Brad Howell had 11, and then I think
12.
We've seen up to like, I think Dean from Kawasaki, I think he's got the record so far now, about 13 or maybe 14, something like that.
So you just squeeze it.
Yeah, just squeeze. You have a practice go.
Get your palms behind it.
I'll shift this out the way.
Like, whatever you can do to squeeze the thing, so you get 2 shots at it.
Straight arms. I would use your palms like that. Yeah, like that. And then, are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go on, squeeze.
That was his knuckles cracking.
12 and a half there. 12 and a half, that's strong.
Number 1.
Is that the record?
12,
No, you got another go here. Come on, start.
By the way, you always do better on your second go, so just explosive. Are you ready?
Now, don't be shy.
3, 2, 1, go on. Jesus! 13 and a half, I think that was. So that is our new record. So.
Fantastic.
So you clearly need to work on your strength.
I'll stick a note. While I'm making a note of this, tell us all about what Podium juice is.
It's an unsellable product.
Yeah, it's dodgy looking kind of white pink powder in silver sachets.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, it's something that I've been developing for, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years now, and it's designed for motorcycle racing. So the ingredients they're in there, designed to kind of combat arm pump. So it reduces lactate production, increases ATP production, increases focus, blood flow, pretty much everything that you find that you have an issue with when you're riding your bike. It calms you down as well. It decreases kind of like that nervous tension and anxiety that you get when you're riding. So yeah, every issue that you'd normally have kind of physically when you're riding, it's designed to combat that.
That's incredible.
Have you found like dual purpose for like in other things in your life? Like maybe going like before night away with the missus, a bit of Podium juice.
It's twice as efficient. It's twice as efficient as Mr. Muscle. He unclogs the drains with it.
Oh yeah, it'll strip paint off anything.
Yeah, but, I mean, like, do you know, like, say if you were going for like a cycle or a runner, would you have it before any other sport? Or is it just specifically for bike racing?
I think it'd be beneficial. I think it's definitely got some kind of cross compatibility in terms of other areas, but Yeah, it has been designed specifically with kind of motorcycle racing in mind.
Mm-hmm. And just put it into perspective as well. It's not like a few club races or a few BSB lads are using it. It's like some of the top bike races in the world. Like,
Yeah.
Are you okay talking about like who your clients are? Is that confidential?
Yeah, no, that's so I think. Yeah, well, I mean, all the championships that I've worked with the guys that won, they've all used it. So yeah, like 7 British championships, I think 4 BSB titles, finished 3rd maybe in World Superbikes 3 years running. But yeah, Scott uses it, Tom Sykes, Josh Brooks, Leon Naslim's used it, Jake Dixon, Danny Buchan, Ben Curry. Yeah, a lot of guys, Joe Francis, yeah, a lot of guys.
But you see that list of names, you know, it just shows every single one of them is at the top of their game, and it's just talking about, like, I keep referring back to it, but like a dyno scheme, isn't it? And you brought up the point really early on the pod. It's the fact of the game's elevated that much. It is just so different. Like you joked on upstairs, you were like, "Well, back when I was racing, it was piss ups and press ups." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like there was no, and you're seeing like the riders are getting younger, more younger lads are trying to get up to this level at such an early point, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's like, I guess the only kind of analogy that I could use is it's like you go and buy a bike from a showroom and then you turn it into a super bike. So every kind of piece of kit on there that's used to restrict it, you know, like restrictors used to restrict things to like 33 brake horsepower, didn't they, when you were learning to ride a bike on road. It's identifying where they are and then removing them. So it's like
It's a good.
I can tell you're from near Stokesley.
A good chance to ask this, because I don't think we've had somebody on the podcast with your kind of background and experience. But arm pumps, like an enigma in bike racing.
Yeah.
I've been really fortunate so far, and I've never suffered from it. But I know, like most, would you say most of the paddock at some points had it?
Yeah.
If you go around the BSB paddock and you asked everyone to put their arms out, you. Like on most riders or a lot of riders, you would see the scars. Some people have had the operation like 2 or 3 times.
I'm only starting to develop it now, on the right, just on my right arm.
Right.
Since losing that.
Right.
Not since losing
Do
that.
you know what? The most of your grip is through these 2 fingers, so that's probably why.
The braking thing.
Yeah.
There you are.
Do you know everyone thinks I'm weird because I brake with them 2 fingers.
You get more strength with these fingers.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got 1.5 here. So
Yeah.
So you're overcompensating with that then.
But you see, the thing, like even with the throttle and stuff like that, you know, the brake and that is the important one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That everything's on that side.
For sure, yeah.
Give us a rundown on the sort of the actual science of what arm pump is and like what causes it and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So basically, you've got kind of 3 muscles that run over this way, 3 muscles that run this way, and they're kind of contained within a sheath. So when you're exercising, you obviously get a lot of waste product in there. The increase in blood flow kind of restricts the flow of the blood out in the muscle. So what you find is it'll pump up and contract, and then it can cause issues like carpal tunnel syndrome, where it'll restrict your median nerve. But you basically just kind of lose the feeling to your hand. And that's what the surgery that you're referring to, they'll basically go in and kind of like cut that sheath to relieve the muscle and let it expand. The key to kind of not developing arm pump, a lot of it is psychological, believe it or not. So if you're kind of calmed, and I know a lot of riders that have overcome arm pump psychologically by, you know, taking a different approach to the riding, psychologically relaxing a little bit more.
So just to back up that point, I used to have a teammate who would go testing and he would be faster than me and he would do a full day's riding, no problem. And then we would get to free practice at a BSB meeting, and like a couple of little apps in free practice one, he would pull in with arm. He had big problems all the way through his career and have operations and all kinds. And that kind of, because I've never had it myself, I've always thought it possibly might be a little bit psychological.
Yeah, there's definitely a psychological impact.
Element, but obviously the psychology then leads to a massively physical element. And we're not saying it's just in your head. It's obviously the head causes the physical issues, but you can actually fix it upstairs.
Yeah. You know, obviously there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and that's definitely one piece to that puzzle. Development of the forearm, that's another one. So you need to be really careful on how you're training as to not kind of develop too much circumference on that muscle. You know, the key to being quick on a bike is to be as small as possible but as strong as possible. So you've got to be really careful when you're lifting weights and things, how much you develop that.
I was about to say, so someone will be listening to this who's suffering badly from arm pump, may it be motocross, roads, anything.
There'd be hundreds.
There'd be hundreds of people. So what would your best advice be? Just less weight, like, or what? I know it's such a hard thing to down, but what would your best
I
be?
think obviously you need kind of, especially pulling exercises, you need to develop some good back strength for obviously clinging onto a couple hundred horsepower bike and direction change and things like that. So you need to be strong. So you need to perform a lot of pulling exercises, obviously, like, rack pulls or bent over rows. But what you don't want to really do is include your grip in that. So using straps, or you can get like these little clasps. So you're not actually using the grip to lift the bar. You can develop certain areas of the back, for example, without actually using the grip, and it's that'll develop the forearm. So training smart, watching how you're lifting, what secondary muscles you're using to target, your primary muscles, which are your back muscles. But then also stretching is good, especially before you're riding. So stretching out, physio on them is good. So getting in there and kind of expanding that sheath before you go out and ride. So a lot of heavy pressure through your forearm. So you're creating some space for that muscle to expand into.
You see them massage guns that everyone gets?
Yeah.
How are they? Is that a good bit to buy, for example, like for
arm pump? I don't think that is. I don't think it's not aggressive enough.
Oh, right.
When I'm saying like physio, you'd literally get the elbow and run it down the arm to really open that sheath.
What are those guns? I don't really know much about them.
There's a load of them out there. They're just like massage guns.
Like therapy guns or something like that. You see people using them on their necks and shoulders and stuff.
Is it just to break up tissue?
Yeah, and increase blood flow and circulation in that particular area. So it's like you used to kind of use a tennis ball to roll out on, or kind of, it's like another step on from that, really.
Right.
Oh, fantastic. It's it's just like especially the whole arm pump thing. It's just a bit of a minefield, really, isn't it? For people that are suffering with it, it's like, and when you say it's a psychological thing, when you know that you've had it, you're just
waiting for it.
As you're then going for it, obviously it's in your head. It's like, for example, if you don't like public speaking, and then you've got to speak in front of public. As much as you tell yourself to relax, you're making yourself work. It's it's work. That used to, when I was a kid, that would be like my worst nightmare, to stand up in front of like a big crowd of people, and like I guess I've been really fortunate with like, we're both sponsored by the North Yorkshire Road Racing Sports Club, and we like go there, and from a young age it means like you're speaking in front of like 20 and then 30 and then 50 and then a few hundred, and it like sort of gradually builds up.
Yeah,
but it's that thing of, when you really, something like that, like public speaking, the best thing is just to get tiny bit out of your comfort zone. A little bit like training, you kind of just go past, and then you just gradually pushing the barriers, and then eventually it's the same as anything, isn't it? Like people who like suffer with anxiety and all kinds. I guess.
So in that respect, with the arm pump, you just need to approach it, and then we spoke about meditation earlier, just kind of trying to get relaxed. And a lot of guys like to get amped. You get different riders, I've worked with guys that like to be super chilled and super relaxed, and in that case we'll remove like stimulants from Podium juice because they want to approach a race calm, which I think helps for arm pump. And then you've got other guys that just want to get completely jacked and be wanting to rip their bars off.
Which one do you prefer? Be honest. Give us
the latter. Which approach? Probably the latter.
Yeah, the jack. I bet it's great fun. Go on, get on there.
But yeah, the Podium juice, that helps to alleviate arm pump, because there's stuff in there that increases blood flow and that buffers lactate production. So there's a lot of ingredients in there that actually help, physiologically help arm pump.
I think I'm more, I don't know about you, but I'm more of the first option, like try and be like as relaxed as possible. Like I remember years ago, I had a team manager that used to play classical music in the Ornan, and I used to think it was really embarrassing at the time, but it sort of bred into like a winning atmosphere, and just like a beautiful, calm, relaxing, like nothing was stressful, and that's kind of like, everyone's different, but that's kind of like how I would like. Well, to be fair, because I get ready in here, so sometimes if you knocked on my door, you'd hear like something chilled, and other times it's to be fair, it just depends how I feel on the day really. But most of the time, I need relax. I once started eating them bars, them tube things. They're supposed to get you wired.
The energy gels.
And I did a really short spell a few years ago in superbikes. And I started taking them, and I think I was wired before the session, and I think all that energy that it's given you, I think it's because when you sat there not using it, I think it goes to your head a little bit, and that didn't really work for me. I'm pleased that I tried it, but I've never then carried on using it because I just felt like I was full of energy, and it just didn't really. Yeah, there's
ways around. You can still get the benefits of using stimulants, but if you combine them with certain ingredients, they'll counteract that nervous kind of anxiety that you get with it. It's like caffeine, you kind of get a bit jittery with it. If you were to put a certain amino acid with it, it'd completely counteract that effect. So you'd get the benefit of the focus and the alertness, but you wouldn't get the associated kind of jitters that you'd usually get with a stimulating product.
Do you know with making something like that yourself, obviously there's like a massive opportunity cost of getting it wrong. Like for example, if you added something in and it like caused problems. How on earth do you develop something like that? Because like
can't give all those secrets away, Chrissy. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It has gone wrong on certain occasions, and we've had a few guys had some accidents. Let's say, but. Yeah, it's it's been a slow process.
Shit themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. No, because when you see accidents in this sport, it could be a really big thing. But as long as they just shit themselves, that's all right.
But my response is, well, you won the race, so you're on pole. Like, what's the fucking problem? It's a small price to pay.
You're just going to dribble down the inside of your leg. You should be thanking me.
But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I first started developing this product back in I think 2014 or 15, and back then it was literally like putting a few ingredients into little pots and taking these little pots along to BSB weekends and handing them out. But yeah, since then it's evolved. So whenever I'll add a new compound to it, I'll test it first, and I've got guys that'll test it. And I get a lot of fortunately we're working with such great riders. I get a lot of really constructive feedback as well. So we'll put something new out there, and sometimes it doesn't work. I made some adjustments to it this year, and in theory and on paper, it looked great, but I didn't get very good feedback, so we had to change it up and go back. So sometimes we can get it wrong, but more often than not, every year we've improved it. Yeah.
See, we'll talk about it later in the pod, but you've got huge things planned with this business, huge things. But so let's talk about what you're doing right now at the moment. Do you prefer to be on the ground, shall we say? Do you like, when Scott's racing, for example, Scott won't be one of your clients at world level, are you actually there on the day, or is it all quite based from home, or travel will be a problem and everything like that?
Yeah, early days I were there pretty much every weekend. Yeah. As of late, not so much. 2020, I spent a lot of time with Tom in World Superbike. Yeah. So pretty much every World Superbike race. I only went to one round this year. Obviously, with the current global situation, travel's become a bit of an issue. But yeah, time for me's become increasingly kind of more valuable, and I've had to put a lot of time into the business. So I do love it being there, but unfortunately there's not enough for me to kind of go around. So
and also in the world we live in with the technology, it's not crucial that you're there. You can still interact very efficiently from wherever in the world. I mean, like with Zoom and stuff, it's amazing.
As a coach, I don't believe you need to be there. Like, my work is done away from the circuit, so I can't add a lot of value during a race weekend. That's when they need to just go away and concentrate on riding the bike and speak with the team that are making adjustments there and then, in that reactive situation. So my part's done away from weekend. So
do you feel like you have an edge being a rider yourself?
100%.
Yeah, I was about to say, because all these lads who are speaking to you, it's like they know you've been through similar things.
Yeah, it's there's ways of doing things, but quite often, a way of doing something on paper in practical terms is not always, you can't always apply that. So I've been to like a bunch of seminars that, let's say, supplement companies have put forward a fueling strategy, let's say, for a rider, and I'd sit in on these seminars, and on paper it looks fantastic, but in practical terms, when you've got to consider like no appetite, media commitments, time, traveling, all these things, it's like it's an impossible task really to be able to do that. So having ridden bikes myself, not only am I aware of all the effects that riding a bike has on you, you know, I've been there and done it, and I can really relate to what a lot of these guys are going through.
Mm-hmm.
Which is invaluable, you know.
Do you know, sorry, I'm kind of jumping back a little bit, but I've just thought of something. I know quite a few people over the last sort of 2 years that have had COVID, and that after for different periods of time, some people have like struggled for a long time afterwards. Some people have maybe just while they've had COVID. But have you had anybody that's like before COVID tested and then after on the like data side of things, just to see if there's anything that you can see from the data?
No, I've not had anybody.
It'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Because it's, with it just being like a relatively new thing to the world over the last few years, it's, I guess we don't actually know that much about how it sort of affects.
How much it affects you, yeah, for sure. I'm sure it does to a degree, but it's very. The problem is with kind of studies like that, it's very difficult to paint a clear picture, because, you know, straight away you've got a period of inactivity. Is the inactivity affecting the result, or is it actually the illness that's affected the result? You know,
and to have any to sort of bring any conclusions, you would need like a massive data set. Yeah, because even like you've looked at us too, and like how different we eat, like how similar we look, but how different we are. Yeah. So it's you'd need to take subjects and lock them in a room and feed them the same food and get the same amount of sleep, and there's so many variables that you need to account for in that kind of thing. But I'm sure to a degree there's probably you know an element of difference in terms of the performance.
Not so I'm just worried about all these riders you're going to lock in the room for a few months. That's what I'm worried about. If your riders go missing, please contact Jason.
Now, touching on supplements there, over the years, kind of, I've taken some at some times, and especially through injuries, I supplement, especially through the winter, I supplement vitamin D, well, all year round, but especially through the winter.
If you live in the UK, you need it all year round.
Yeah,
right.
Vitamin D.
Right. Sunshine.
For sure, we're all deficient in vitamin D.
There was a massive link between people who were in seriously ill in hospital with COVID and being deficient in vitamin D as well. Yeah. It's one of, in terms of, I think, being really difficult to correlate things, that was like a very clear correlation between. Yeah. And it would also suggest why the BAME community had such a negative effect from COVID as well. Yeah. In this country with lack of vitamin D. Other supplements, what? I mean, I know you're big into your supplements, but what?
God, I use loads. Yeah,
I'm going to start like.
At times you've been on plenty, haven't you? Like rattling.
Yeah.
No, through injuries and stuff.
Oh God, honestly,
Aiden's a big fan, isn't he?
I sound like a bloody Tic-Tac box.
For injury, definitely, yeah. There's a
for just general races. What's like the top 3 that you would say is really important?
The main one I probably can't talk about. It's something that you know, we kind of use, and it's great for reducing inflammation.
Is it, when you say you can't talk about it, just like,
is that your business?
It's just it's not a kind of a mainstream.
All right.
Supplement. Obviously, everything we do, we've got to comply to you know, WADA's prohibited list. So
yeah, every
January I'll go through that with a fine tooth comb. But there's a lot of things out there that you can use that you know, there's no associated side effects. It's not on WADA's prohibited list, but it's got huge benefits. So, you know, one of them for injury for sure, reduces inflammation. That's one of the kind of main reasons why injuries take time to heal, because it restricts blood flow, nutrient delivery, oxygen. Mm-hmm. So the more you can reduce the inflammation, the quicker you're going to heal. It also induces like cell proliferation and cell mitosis. So you grow in, if you've injured like ligaments or tendons or bone, you're going to grow new cells at a quicker
Much
rate.
faster rate.
Yeah.
You know, from the tests that we've had today,
Yeah.
we had, touch wood for the love of God, but if we had the same crash, the exact same injury, who would recover from that data? Gavin, who would recover quicker? Can you tell that, or do you need to go into further?
It's difficult.
At a guess.
It's difficult to say. I think probably maybe Chrissy had a slightly higher VO2, so
Right.
a little bit more oxygen available. So
Chrissy would heal quicker than me.
Marginally, yeah.
Right? No, it's just interesting, that side of things, because like you say, it's like we keep referring back to the blueprint side of things. It's a bit like, I need to up that. The fitter you are, the quicker you recover.
And obviously, it can get away with eating more calories. So
Twat.
whenever you've got an injury, your basal metabolic rate will probably increase by around 20%. So the energy demands that are placed on your body to heal the injury, it's more taxing in terms of energy. So you need to be putting yourself in what would seem to be a calorie surplus, but is actually probably maintenance, considering how much extra energy your body requires to heal.
Right.
So with that as well, getting away with kind of eating more, that'd help towards
it's
fixing up a bit faster.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's the thing. It's like the fitness. Like I think this is the 5th time I've said it, but I've had my eyes opened up. It's like the thing is, motorcycle racing, crashing. It's like you don't go swimming without getting wet, do you? It's gonna happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the only thing that we all think of when you fall off your bike is, when am I next getting back on it?
Yeah,
isn't it? And that's the element of it.
So, do you know when we were just talking about the supplements? Were you referring to if injured, or were you just talking to general supplements?
Yeah, if injured, I mean, you can use it year round. It helps a lot with training. Obviously,
is this the supplement that we can't talk about?
Yeah.
Type of thing? Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. That's all right.
Yeah,
we're gonna get so many messages after this.
Everyone is going like any cash deals for this super Podium juice and metabolic.
Is it like a family of supplements, or are you talking about one specific supplement?
It could be categorized as a family of
begin with a P.
Supplements. No.
All right, I'm not.
What were you thinking?
I'll speak to you after the podcast.
I tell you, you're gonna have to start being careful. It's gonna be like transporting the Pope. This bottle of like Podium juice. You'll be like, and return the bottle.
Yeah. I mean,
it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, drink it, give me the bottle back.
Yeah.
Piss off.
To be honest, that's what it's like with the juice. I mean, obviously, with the Podium juice, we'll establish whether there's any allergies or anything like that. But yeah, this is why this product's never been kind of mass produced, because as soon as that happens, then you have to identify every single ingredient in there. You don't have to identify the doses. You could just present it as a proprietary blend of natural ingredients, but it's out there. And again, with this, I've found this supplement that works really, really well, and I kind of reserve it for the guys that I'm working with.
Yeah, of course.
Again, marginal gains. It's giving them an edge in terms of the performance and recovery and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's got to be done, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Seriously, you're going to have to watch your back door. If you see any of these hats walking around, just give them a wide berth like that. Just check your pockets.
And also, we're talking about after the session. Is there anything else we can say about supplements? Like any other general sort of advice?
I mean, it all depends kind of what you need. Everybody's different. There's definitely some staples like vitamin D, L-carnitine, creatine's fantastic. So there's a few staple supplements that I'd recommend people to use on a daily basis. Recovery after sessions, that's super important. So ensuring that you've got enough kind of protein and carbohydrates to basically kind of rebuild what you've broken down. So induce protein synthesis and then resynthesize glycogen that you've used during that session. So you're basically just topping up your carb stores. So like, a good kind of whey isolate or a peptide, a collagen peptide if you're dairy intolerant. Dextrose, fructose are great. If you combine those two together, you get a quicker rate of glycogen resynthesis. So it's all about just trying to get you using nutritional supplementation to kind of get yourself recovered or primed and recovered as quick as possible.
I'll tell you what I'm looking for. Like, so what we have patrons for the show to keep the show going, right?
Yeah.
And we have a quiz every month, and we get everyone on Zoom call. That is going to be in there. Go, so which one's the best? And they'll get anything they want if they get this one. I'm telling you, we'll make a note of this. That's going to be a hell of a tough quiz. I'm telling you. All right, any hard questions? Yeah. Who's your least favourite rider you're working with? No, joking.
You got to answer that one.
I was trying to pick one.
Yeah. Going from, in terms of general diet, obviously there's lots of diets just in the general public, you know. We were speaking earlier, often in January to try and sort of quick, like, lose the sort of puppy fat. I go like a very sort of keto sort of would you say paleo diet, like a meat nuts, that type of thing.
Ketogenic is when you're really low on carbohydrates.
Yeah, like basically just a low carb diet. But there's so many different sort of options throughout the year. Obviously, there's a big push from there's just a big push in general for like sort of vegan and like with the thing on Netflix. Game Changers.
Game Changers.
Yeah, there's various things.
That bloody documentary.
I was about to say, because even I watched that when meat, not a chance.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, how much of a pain in the arse was that for you then? That one programme? Because I could see you glazing over there. You look like, oh yeah.
Obviously, sort of the vegan diet's becoming more popular.
Yeah.
What's from your sort of scientific background? What's your sort of thoughts on it? I
mean, horses for courses. There's definitely benefits to, you know, a vegan diet in certain settings, in certain situations. As an athlete, you know, I work with a lot of guys that are vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian. Don't eat a lot of animal protein, and you know, for you don't need loads of protein. So you mentioned that the paleo diet, that had a real heavy emphasis on a lot of protein, probably too much protein. As an athlete, you know, an active athlete, you probably need around 1.7 grams of protein per kilo. So
roughly,
yeah, roughly. So we don't need heaps, you know, for yourself. Maybe sort of 120, 130 grams a day. So not loads, but you know, animal proteins contain a full amino profile, which are required to achieve muscle protein synthesis. If you're relying on plant-based foods, you've got to do a lot of food combining to get the full 8 amino acids to basically kind of grow and regenerate. Protein is the building blocks of our cells.
So just it is possible to get everything you need from a vegan diet, but it's just very difficult.
It's very difficult. And you know, there's other issues around it with anti-nutrients and, you know, basically kind of plant-based foods emitting chemicals as like a defense mechanism, which can sometimes contribute towards inflammation. There's arguments, you know, for both, and there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and you know, there's a lot of studies out there that prove and disprove both methods. But again, it's very difficult to get a clear picture on it. It's like you look at, let's say, cardiovascular mortality rates. They're lower in vegans than they are in meat eaters, but vegans are probably more likely to do yoga, not smoke fags, and drink beer. You know, and you know what I mean, and meditate. And people that eat meat are probably eating Domino's pizzas every night and swilling 10 pints of Guinness. So
yeah, good lads.
I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's just back to what we're talking about data. When there's so many variables, it's very difficult to get.
Yeah, so for sure there's a lower mortality rate, but they're looking after themselves in other areas of life, not just what they're putting in the mouth. So
yeah, you don't get many vegans who aren't health conscious.
Yeah, going down to local crack den on a Friday night. You know.
Friday, yes. Saturday, Sunday.
What about yourself? Obviously, after racing, we haven't mentioned this in the pod yet, but after racing, you did a bit of, it's not bodybuilding, but it's like, what's the sport called where you're like...
He's going to send a photo over. Right? The women viewers are going to go through the roof after they see this.
What's that sport called?
It was just weird. It basically, I mean, obviously racing for 16, 17 years, when I stopped, I felt like I had a huge void in my life, so I threw myself into training. I think they call it like physique category, so not ridiculously muscle bound, but, you know, like an athletic physique and you go and prance around on a stage, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I did it now. But
is it all based on aesthetics?
Yeah, and that's why I stopped ultimately, because I was getting judged on the way that I looked, and for me, I'd always based crossing a line, finish line first as being good, and then when it started, it was too kind of objectified. People are saying, "Oh, well, you need to just develop this area and develop this," and the way that you win is very kind of blurred. Racing a clean cut, you cross that line first out of everybody, you've won. Whereas winning a physique competition or a bodybuilding competition, there's...
Did you... I guess I've got a few questions, but the first, did you find filling that void quite difficult, sort of, the racing?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't go near a racetrack for a couple of years.
That's what I found interesting about, when I was asking, like, you being on the ground, with riders, how, like you say, how hard has that been for you?
Oh, first couple of years, it was just impossible. It's like I felt like I lost my identity. And I went through a lot of issues psychologically. I suffered, pretty severe depression as a result of it. All my life, racing bikes that defined me as a person. Then all of a sudden, I didn't have that anymore. So it was a tough couple of years. And I was still kind of working with people, but I didn't really want to be in that environment because it was kind of too upsetting for me. So it was pretty easy to throw myself into the gym and just try and block it out. Yeah, it's an escape, filling a void.
Have you got any advice for people who are recently, because every year there's always someone that wants to change, rejig their life. Have you got any advice for that? Because there are people be listening to this going, I feel exactly how you were feeling.
Yeah, there is a life after racing. There's a life after all sports. But the problem is, to be successful, you've got to be consumed by what you're doing. And whilst you're racing, you're not really aware of other things that are out there. So, it does define you as a person. And I think it's probably worth, whilst you're racing, although you definitely need to be consumed by it, you also need to be aware that it's not everything. For me, when I were riding, you think that is your life, and you don't realise you've got a life after it. So now, like, my body's beat to bits, and I'm struggling to walk around on a morning because I'm aching, and it's like I've probably got another 40 years left. But when you're racing, that's all you're thinking of. So you'll do anything, and so I think just being more, to answer your question, being more aware of the bigger picture. Like, there's other things out there that can bring you as much enjoyment. I get huge pleasure now out of seeing guys that I'm working with going winning races. I get almost as much pleasure out of seeing them do well as I did, when I'd go win a race myself, because you've played a part in that. Just, I guess if people are coming to that point in their career, it's like there are other cool things, and racing, as much as we like to think it is life, it's not.
we both spoke about this, and it's kind of both of our biggest fears, really, isn't it?
It is my biggest fear, but like, at the end of the day, Chrissy, this podcast, we're very lucky that we've got this, it's that element that we're still involved in it. But no, I was saying that to you upstairs, it is a big fear of me, not being involved in motorcycle, especially not being on a motorcycle. So being able to go, you know what, I'm stepping back. I keep mentioning this. My dad's 62 and he still races motorcycles. He's just that's my hero, and the fact of, like, he just knows what makes him happy. Actually, that's a difficult thing.
What I actually really like when I see someone retire, and when they've wanted to retire and they look happy, because one of the things that really upsets us is when I see someone that it's kind of what I'm scared of, when I can see it happening to somebody else, that it's a difficult one to sort of go through, but when you can see that they don't want to retire, and they kind of
I think the way you approach your racing whilst you're racing plays a big part on that. So for me, for example, I didn't really put everything into it. I could have done more, and I'll admit to that. So I'm quite bitter now when I look back, because I think, I could have probably won some more races, or maybe won some championships. So I've kind of always got that around my neck. Whereas I think if you put everything into it, don't half-ass anything. Your training, your diet, the budget's like, how long are you going to go racing for? If you've got a 5-year plan, put it all into 2 years. Put all that money into getting a good bike and a good team around you, and really exploring your potential. And you'll either do well and you'll win races and win championships and go on to have a great career, or you'll do nothing and you'll retire. but you'll be content. You either won a load of races and championships and you'll retire and you'll be happy, or you'll retire and you'll be content that there were nothing else that you could have done to being the best rider that you could have been. So you're at peace with it. I'm pissed off because I didn't there were a lot more that I could have done when I was riding to have been a better rider, and I didn't do it. And you can't go back in time, you know.
Yeah, that's another thing that's sort of echoing that as well. Like I would much rather retire knowing that I've given it 100%. I've left nothing on the table, and I just wasn't good enough. I think I could live with that.
Yeah, you've done everything you could do. There's nothing more that you could do. Yeah, you know, and that brings peace when you know you've done that.
Now we're down that rabbit hole. How did you, like, financially? You know, it was a case of that is the thing that drives me. It's not the injury or anything or results. You know, I've got me, like, I'm very realistic as a rider. It's like, right, that's my next goal. Get to that. Make another goal, go to that. I'm not going, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then let myself down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Go, well, fucking hell, that's unrealistic. Let's just build on it. But it's the money side of it. And yes, the violin's out in it, but everyone is in the same boat. You're in the same boat. You're in the same boat. It's like that. I've always kept that attitude that's been bred in me from my mum and dad, is I pay as you go. Yeah. I go earn money and then I spend it very quickly. Yeah. Like, very quickly.
You do when you're interested in motorcycles.
That's it. That's it. But it was a case of, like, financially you just go, right, well, we can do that.
Yeah. Then, I think when you're looking at budget, without, you know, from hindsight, looking back now, what we should have done is, you know, there were only a few years that I kind of rode for teams. A lot of it we self-funded and we did ourselves. And we'd have a decent bike, but it weren't capable of winning races. And every single year, we'd go into a new year, same scenario. Looking back now, let's say I spent 15 years riding, I'd have probably got all that money and thrown it into 5 years and got a good bike and a good team around me. And, you know, it allows you to
have a go at it.
Yeah, you know, because then you put some brass into it and a team will come along and, you know, you get a decent ride.
You're speaking on one thing that no one has. Hindsight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
so everybody
thing,
listen to me. Go borrow £500,000.
Right. I'm just getting on the phone to Lloyd's here.
Looking back as well, it's you know, you've seen both sides. You've seen people that have kind of spent money that they haven't had, hoping that you know this will be the big chance, and then the years later they're still, like, they've remortgaged the house and they're still paying it back years later. Then I can easily think of, like, a few people that when I first started racing with were probably better than me, and they just, when it got a little bit more expensive the next year, they either couldn't get the money to race, or in terms of priorities, it was like, well, they have, like, a few family holidays, they do this, they do that, and do you know what I mean? Like, different priorities to what we had. Yeah. And it possibly, looking back, if those people had just had that one big year and went for it, it could have then led to like a career. But it's so difficult because, like you say, in hindsight, it's
a big risk.
Yeah, that's the whole sport. You're on a knife edge, and you're this close to amazing success, the best feeling in the world, and you're this close to the very worst feeling in the world. You could lose your life essentially, and it's you're on that knife edge and between success and tragedy. Yeah, but what a fantastic way to spend your life, chasing glory on a knife edge. It's like,
I have no regrets. Like, I've had a fantastic life. You know, I could write several books on things that I've experienced, and I've met some incredible friends, you know, as a result of it. So yeah, you know, I'm crippled, bankrupt a couple of times, but I don't regret any of it.
Yeah. You just wish you were bankrupt a bit earlier and had a better bike.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you what, before we go on to that side of things, that's a perfect way to spin into the future of things. You know, we've talked about your past, and let's talk about, you know, mate, your bollocks. You know,
what's your visions with the business?
So yeah, I mean, initially, the whole thing that kind of spurred this on was COVID. You know, before, the guys that I'd work with, we'd send them to a lab to get tested.
I can't believe I've been to a lab. Last time I was in a lab, I was in a test tube. So my mother'd be so proud.
But then obviously when COVID came around, all the labs shut, couldn't get anybody tested. So I've wanted, you know, a metabolic cart for a long while now. I believe about 10 years, but I could never justify spending that much money because I didn't really have the the number of people to use it to kind of reap it back. But yeah, when COVID hit, nowhere to test. Testing were important for creating the plans. So I kind of just had to bite the bullet and buy it. But then it kind of hit me that, hang on a minute, there's probably a lot of other people that would like access to this technology as well. So I'll pimp it out. So yeah, we've obviously got the lab here. We plan to open more labs throughout the country. And we are kind of building relationships with other fitness facilities to kind of share this technology. So, multinational gyms can kind of purchase blocks of assessments from us and then pass them on to their members. But yeah, I guess the vision for the business is to make metabolic testing mainstream. It doesn't have to be reserved for elite athletes. And I strongly feel that, metabolic testing will be like kind of heart rate data 10 years ago. So like in another 5 to 10 years time, I think people will be heavily relying on this level of technology.
It's I can't believe how detailed it is. It's the fact of like just getting a blueprint and off you get, that is crucial. But when you're talking about mainstream gyms, you did name drop upstairs that we're talking no mugs here, like big business, and even potentially in March you might be looking for some staff. So if you want to hang around with them, get a job with them. You know what I mean? So that it's looking big, it's looking promising.
Yeah, it is looking promising.
And in terms of sort of like a sort of plug for your business, if there's like say bike racers, specifically bike racers that are wanting to come and say get an assessment before the sort of winter, they get stuck into the winter training and get some direction for the season ahead, or if they're wanting a bit of Podium juice, what's the
I will give you any money, just have a go on that.
Do they just go on your website? Is it metabolics.com?
Yeah, .co.uk, metabolics.co.uk.
I would say you've got a very sort of tidy, what's the word, like process in terms of booking and then the email, and you get a text the day before. It's like very, it's neat. Nice.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, if anybody wants to book on, just metabolics.co.uk. We've got both assessments on there, the resting and the active. Both are very valuable. Resting's important for obviously figuring out your calorie requirements and putting together a nutritional profile.
And is it a 1% discount for motorbike pod fans?
We could potentially sort
something. Good lad.
Just put motorbike pod at checkout and it might be a surprise.
Yeah.
60% off. You heard that from me. So it's But no, I was about to say, what about your social? I'm literally about to type in on social media. So here is that Metabolic UK?
Metabolics UK. Yeah,
there
that's
we
the
go.
one. That's the one.
That's over on Instagram. Are you on Facebook and Twitter as well?
Yes, I think it's all the same. Metabolics UK.
Following.
Okay. Obviously, your better half's also in the sport, which I never knew before today. Are you okay talking about that? Like what she does?
Nah.
Smooth.
Nice. Swiftly moving on there.
Yeah, so, she's quite keeps herself to herself. Yeah, I won't want to speak on her behalf.
Yeah, fair enough.
Stuff. Doesn't want to get his ass kicked when he gets there. No, I was about to say, but like, do you cover? Well, obviously this is accessible for anyone, for absolutely anyone. Or
yeah,
is it just...
the Podium juice, that's just reserved for the guys that I've kind of got on retainer and the guys I'm working with on a kind of 12 monthly basis. But yeah, the testing is available for anybody to kind of book on and do it. Yeah, and so I think it's beneficial even if you do track days. The amount of people that I see, because I do a bit of coaching at Silverstone on their Yamaha days, and the amount of people that I see doing track days that are just hanging out their arse by lunchtime, and they've spent all that brass to get to a track day, and they're only enjoying half of it. So to do something like this, increase the fitness a little bit, fuel properly leading up to that, they could maybe even enjoy a full day. So I think it brings value to a lot of people. Really.
I was about to say, because like the amount of you work with motocross as well, they're proper athletes, aren't they? They are serious motor, but like literally, it is accessible to anyone. I think that's important to get out there. It's just it's unbelievable.
Do you know the TT? What's the most amount of races you can do in one day? Is it possible to have
a lot?
It actually goes off laps. So like on a busy day, you can do we were doing 4 laps in the Super Twin race and doing a 6-lap senior.
So you can do 10 laps of the TT on, and all the emotional stress in that for that full day.
Yeah, roughly 70-minute laps.
How many calories do you reckon? 10 laps of the TT and all the emotional stress of the TT.
I'll pull it Ramsey for a sandwich.
You must be seriously doing some calories in a day, mustn't you?
Yeah, a lot. I work with Lee Johnston one year, and I think he were a nightmare for me. I was out in California at the time, and I was trying to do all this programming out from California. Then he sent me a schedule through, and I'm like, "What races are you doing?" Everything,
all of them.
Yeah, that were. Thanks, Lee. That were difficult. But yeah, it's massively costly in terms of energy. I mean, you're probably burning, I don't know, maybe 14 calories a minute just doing short circuit stuff. So
is that what it works out?
Yeah, you know, if you were to kind of collect some data, everybody's different. That's kind of like a ballpark figure, but yeah, he's burning through some energy.
Madness.
Like when you think a 2-week event, that's the other side of it, isn't it? You're just getting tired and more tired, aren't you, throughout of it all?
So that's where the recovery is imperative, making sure that you're getting the right supplements in and the right food and fuel to.
And there is that definite thing about emotional stress, like in terms of even if you just monitored people's parents, I think you'd do some serious calories on race day just for the, like, you're knackered on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And it's that your heart's going and all that sort of stuff. I got a few Patreon questions for you. I've got two. First one is Jesse Mortimer. Who is the fittest rider athlete you work with, and are there any that you work or have worked with that could transfer their levels to another discipline? As I have heard that some bike racers have similar fitness levels to pro cyclists. Is this true?
Yeah, I think the most obvious answer for that is probably Scott. You know, he's an incredibly fit lad. He can pedal a superbike around, but he can also pedal a push iron as well. And he's setting up a cycling team next year. We're working closely with the SRCT Muck-Off team, and we're providing all the physiological assessments for that team as well. So we're kind of looking after them. But
so is he going to be doing some pro cycling next year as well?
He's been doing some races already, so he's been doing some races this year, and he, you know, he's very strong on the bike, and he's got great potential. So Scott's probably the most obvious answer for that one.
Yeah, we are.
And Philip Hannon. I see Formula One drivers training their muscles in their necks as they need to withstand a lot of pressure here. Is there anything specific bike racers should train?
Specific way in terms of the neck or just everywhere?
I think it just meant anywhere, but
what is the most used muscle on a motorcycle?
The most what? Sorry,
used muscle. Don't say heart or brain. That doesn't count.
You know what? I think probably you got to have a strong core. You know, you can be strong in other areas, but if you don't have a strong core, everything else kind of falls apart. And it's the same for a lot of sports as well, like cycling. If you don't have a strong core, you're going to struggle. So yeah, I'd probably say that.
Good.
There we go.
That's not what I expected, but good.
All these plankers all over the place now.
Have you got any other questions to wrap things up?
No, I want to go to bed, mate. I'm bollocks after that.
Obviously, that the second test that we did, you go to like your absolute maximum, and it took us both a few minutes afterwards to like sort of just come around and feel your legs feel like they're going to give. You are like pushing to the limit, aren't you? So.
Yeah, I mean it's as I said to you before the test, it's only as difficult as you want to make it, and you know, people think, I'm fit, it'll be okay, but it's not, because everybody's pushing themselves to their limit. So regardless of how fit you are, it's going to kill you.
It's class. It is class. It's proper adrenaline. Like, cause we just were quiet, mate. We've never been that quiet ever. Like, right, yeah, you go first, mate. You go first.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant to have you over. You know, it was great and really interesting to see your stats. So hopefully get some good information and build on that now.
I'll be back. I'll be definitely back.
I know you don't watch or listen to the podcast, but this might be your first one, and you might sit back and enjoy it. A lot of people, we've got a real big like a split of like how people consume the podcast. A lot of people, well, I would say most people just listen to us. So it's like, say when they're like at work or driving or walking the dog or whatever. So it's just all, you can listen just to the Audible side on like Spotify or Apple or whatever, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen.
Nice, you don't anything you missed there, son.
Also, do you know what? That's one thing I never realised how many apps there are for. If you go on our like analytics thing, there's hundreds or if not thousands of different apps
for streaming it.
And it goes on all of them anyway. And also you can watch it people watch it like on the TV on a nighttime stuff on YouTube. So it's your choice.
I'm going to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to get Grace to put them pictures of you posing if you send us them over. You'll have to send us them over.
And we've got you a present for coming on. After destroying us, we've got you a cap there.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
If you could wear that in front of all your clients,
absolutely,
all of them, that'd be great.
That's my new testing.
That is the brand new hat, that, my man. Brand new hat.
Yeah, obviously, huge thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
We've talked about like your social media plugs and your website. Is there anything else that you would like to? Is there anything else you've got to promote? Or
no,
do you do Metabolix merch, or is that?
No, we could do
in the future.
I think in the future. The problem is, like I've said, I've just been so busy trying to pull everything together. Like I've got loads of ideas of where we're going to go with it. Potentially a training facility, things like that, but it's all going to be, in kind of due course. I've just got to...
And honestly, you might be looking for staff sometime soon to be sort of...
Yeah, I think probably around March time next year, we'll be looking to potentially employ some people. So, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone keep an eye on it. Get you followed on social media. Check out the website. There'll be opportunities popping up there.
We've got a career section on the on the website. There's a little tab join the team, so all the job opportunities that we're going to be putting out will be on there. So
yeah, and if anyone mentions
hoodie,
chasing the racing, and we'll have a little
backlink.
Right, thanks everyone. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Colchester Kawasaki. Massive thank you to our patrons, and look forward to the podcast next week, whoever we may have on.
There we go. Cheers, Brad. Thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.